a world where the sands whisper secrets of ancient power and the harsh winds tell tales of survival and resilience. And as our journey through this captivating tale comes to a close, a tranquil ambience will play throughout the night, carrying you gently into the welcoming embrace of sleep, ensuring a night of restful and restorative slumber without interruptions from any ads. And if you enjoy this tale from the world of Dune, please be sure to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You can now support us on our Patreon, where you'll get exclusive access to our Spotify playlist and early access to all of these stories. But for now, let's get cozy and step into a world where the echoes of the desert winds and the strength of its people beckon us in to their timeless story. The desert stretched endlessly under the merciless glare of the sun. Waves of heat shimmered above the sand, distorting the horizon into a hazy mirage. In this hostile expanse of Arrakis, a planet where water was more precious than gold, survival seemed impossible. Yet, against all odds, the Fremen thrived. Zane stood at the mouth of a hidden cave. His eyes, tinted an unnatural blue from years of consuming the planet's ubiquitous spice, scanning the desolate landscape. His weathered hand rested on the hilt of a curved knife, a constant companion in a world where danger lurked in every shadow. Behind him, the cave opened into a vast network of tunnels and chambers, a secret city carved into the very heart of the rock. This was a siege, home to hundreds of Fremen, the native inhabitants of Arrakis, who had adapted to its brutal environment over generations. The sound of approaching footsteps drew Zane's attention. Lyra, his wife, emerged from the depths of the siege. Her movements were graceful, conserving energy in the way of all desert dwellers. Like Zane, her eyes gleamed that telling blue, a side effect of the spice that permeated every aspect of life on the planet. The women are gathering for the water ritual, Lyra said, her voice low. Will you join us this time? Zane shook his head, a faint smile touching his lips. Karak has called a meeting. We must discuss the latest Imperial movements. Lyra nodded, understanding the weight of duty that rested on her husband's shoulders. As one of the tribe's most respected warriors, Zane's counsel was often sought in matters of survival and strategy. Be safe, she murmured, touching his arm briefly before disappearing back into the shadows of the siege. Zane watched her go, a familiar ache in his chest. In this harsh world, every parting carried the weight of potential finality. Shaking off that feeling, he made his way deeper into the cave system. The meeting chamber was already full when Zane arrived. Men and women, all bearing the lean, tough physique of the Fremen, gathered around a crude table carved from stone. At its head stood Karak, the leader of their siege. His face was a roadmap of lines etched by sun and worry, but his eyes were sharp as he surveyed the assembled group. The Empire grows bolder, Karak began. Their patrols venture further into the deep desert with each passing week. A murmur of discontent rippled through the gathering. The Fremen had long lived in uneasy coexistence with the planetary government, staying hidden in the most inhospitable regions of Arrakis. Any encroachment on their territory was cause for concern. We've new reports of their movements here and here, Karak continued, pointing to locations on a rough map spread across the table. As the discussions delved into strategies for avoiding detection and protecting their water sources, a commotion at the chamber's entrance interrupted the proceedings. A young woman, barely more than a girl, burst into the room. "Naib Karak," she gasped, using the Fremen title for their leader. "You must come quickly. We found something impossible." Karak's brow furrowed. "Speak plainly, child. What have you seen?" The girl swallowed hard, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Worms. Tiny worms in the hidden spring." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Zane felt a chill run down his spine, despite the ever-present heat. Everyone knew that the giant sandworms of Arrakis, revered by the Fremen as manifestations of their god, avoided water at all costs. It was toxic to them, one of the few weapons humans had against the behemoths that roamed the desert. "Impossible," someone muttered, breaking the silence. Karak's eyes hadn't left the girl's face. "Show me," he commanded, his voice brooking no argument. As the group began to disperse, following Karak and the girl from the chamber, Zane hesitated. The implications of this discovery, if true, were staggering. It could change everything they thought they knew about their world. Zane, Karak's voice cut through his thoughts. Your eyes are needed. With a nod, Zane fell into step behind his leader. As they made their way through the twisting tunnels of the siege, he couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the precipice of something monumental. The pre-dawn air shimmered with heat as Zane crouched at the edge of the hidden spring. His eyes, adapted to the dim light, scanned the water's surface intently. There, a ripple, then another. Suddenly, a tiny form breached the water, no longer than his forearm. A worm, an impossibly small sandworm, swimming. With practiced stealth, Zane reached out and gently captured the creature. Its segmented body writhed in his grasp, cool and slick against his skin. As the sun crested the dunes, he noticed more movement in the spring. Dozens of tiny worms swam in lazy circles through the shallows. Karak, alerted by the commotion, arrived as Zane was carefully collecting specimens. Karak's weathered face, creased with a mixture of wonder and concern as he observed the unprecedented sight. What do you make of this, Zane? Karak asked. Zane shook his head, still processing the discovery. I have never seen anything like it. They defy everything we know about worms and water. Word spread quickly through the siege. By mid-morning, a crowd had gathered around Zane and Karak as they prepared to distribute the captured worms. Fremen women, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and trepidation, stepped forward to accept the small containers housing the writhing creatures. Remember, Zane instructed, observe every detail, their reactions to moisture, to sound, to spice. Everything is important. He handed a container to Jalia, the siege's most experienced botanist. Watch for any changes in coloration or behavior. To Mira, whose keen eyes had first spotted the worms, he gave another, You saw them first in their natural state. Note any differences in captivity. One by one, the containers were distributed. Karak oversaw the process, his presence lending weight to the importance of the task. As Zane handed out the last container, he noticed his wife Lyra at the edge of the group. A fleeting look of disappointment crossed her face as she realized there were no more worms to study. With the distribution complete, Karak addressed the gathered Fremen. This discovery may change our understanding of Arrakis. Study these creatures well and report your findings to Zane and myself. As the group dispersed, each woman eager to begin her observations, Zane and Karak exchanged a glance. The implications of this discovery were yet to be understood, but both men knew that the balance of life on Arrakis might never be the same. The siege's corridors echoed with raised voices. Zane and Lyra stood facing each other, tension palpable between them. You deliberately excluded me, Lyra accused, her eyes flashing. I'm one of the most skilled observers, yet you gave the last worm to a novice. Zane ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his voice. It wasn't deliberate, Lyra. I was caught up in the moment. There simply weren't enough. Their argument was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a young Fremen. Breathless and wide-eyed. Zane, Lyra, you must come quickly. 2 massive worms have been spotted deep in the desert, unlike any we've ever seen. The couple exchanged a glance, their quarrel momentarily forgotten. What do you mean? Unlike any we've seen? Zane asked. The messenger's voice trembled with excitement. One has scales that shine like green glass. The other, a hide red as blood and gleaming like metal. They're enormous, bigger than any worms in living memory. Zane's mind raced with the implications. Strange colored worms, first the tiny ones in the spring, and now these giants. What could all of this mean? Suddenly, he saw an opportunity. Turning to Lyra, his voice took on a determined edge. I'll ride one of these worms. I'll tame it, and I'll bring it back as a gift to you. Surely that's better than any small worm for study. Lyra's expression shifted from anger to concern. Saying, no, they could be dangerous in ways we can't predict. All worms are dangerous, Zane countered. I'm a skilled worm rider. This is a chance to make history, to understand these new makers. But Lyra stood her ground. I have a bad feeling about this. Please don't approach them. At least not until we know more. Zane hesitated, torn between his desire to make amends and the wisdom in Lyra's caution. The choice loomed before him, as vast and inscrutable as the desert itself. The ground trembled, a deep vibration that resonated through the soles of their feet. Zane stood atop of a towering dune, surrounded by a group of Fremen warriors. Their eyes were fixed on the horizon where the deep desert met the sky. There, one of the Fremen breathed, pointing to a distant ripple in the sand. The dunes parted like water before a ship's brow, and from the depths of Arrakis emerged a sight that stole the breath from their lungs. Two colossal sandworms breached the surface, their massive forms dwarfing anything Zane had ever seen. But it wasn't their size that caused his heart to race. It was their color. The worm on the left gleamed of iridescent green scales, shimmering like sun-kissed leaves in a world devoid of such hues. Its companion bore a hide of metallic red, as if forged from molten copper and the planet's fiery core. The sight defied everything Zane knew about the great makers of Arrakis. Zane's mind raced with possibilities. He turned to his companions, eyes blazing with determination. We must study them, understand them. I'll summon them closer. Karak gripped Zane's arm, his weathered face etched with concern. Be cautious, my friend. These are not like the worms we know. There's something different about them. Undeterred, Zane descended the dune, planting the first thumper into the sand. Its rhythmic pounding echoed across the desert, a sound that should have drawn any worm within kilometers. Yet, the colorful giants showed no interest, continuing on their leisurely path across the dunes. Zane tried again, planting a second thumper, then a third, creating a network of vibrations across the sand. Still, the worms paid no heed. Frustration mounting, Zane unhooked the marker hook from his belt. He swung it in wide arcs, the metal singing as it cut through the air. This was the most direct method of calling a worm, a challenge no desert-dwelling freeman had ever seen ignored. But the strange worms remained indifferent. Their massive forms slowly receded into the distance, leaving Zane bewildered and frustrated. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the sand, Zane made a decision. "I must follow them," he declared, gathering his gear. His companions exchanged worried glances. One Freeman stepped forward. "Zane, this is foolish. The deep desert is treacherous, and these worms are an unknown danger." Karak nodded in agreement. "We need you here, with the tribe. There are other ways to study these creatures without risking your life." But Zane's mind was set. "I appreciate your concern, but I feel I must do this. I'll return with answers. I promise." Despite their continued protests, Zane set off alone into the gathering darkness. For days, he pursued the elusive worms, pushing deeper into the desert than any Freeman had ventured before. His water supplies dwindled dangerously low. On the 5th day, as he crested yet another dune, Zane's strength finally gave out. He stumbled, falling to his knees beside an ancient stone marker, weathered by centuries of sandworms. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, unlike any writing he had ever seen. As consciousness slipped away, Zane's last thought was of the mysterious worms. And then darkness claimed him, and he knew no more. The deep desert held its secrets close, the wind erasing Zane's tracks as it had done for countless millennia. The fate of the Freeman warrior and the truth about the extraordinary worms remained hidden in the shifting sands of Arrakis. As Zane lay unconscious by the ancient stone marker, the spice-laden air of the deep desert worked its way into his system. His mind, already strained by days of pursuit and dehydration, succumbed to a vivid hallucinatory state. In his vision, the harsh desert landscape melted away, replaced by a swirling vortex of sand and color. From this maelstrom emerged two figures, their forms shimmering and indistinct at first, but gradually solidifying into humanoid shapes. One wore flowing robes of iridescent green, shifting and sparkling like the scales of the emerald worm. The other was clad in garments of burnished red, gleaming with a metallic sheen that mirrored its crimson counterpart. Their faces were obscured, but their presence radiated an otherworldly power that both awed and unsettled Zane. The green-robed figure spoke first, its voice like the whisper of wind through dune grass. Fremen of Arrakis, your world stands on the brink of change. The red figure's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Your ways, unchanged for millennia, must now adapt or perish. Images flashed through Zane's mind. Towering cities of glass and steel rising from the desert, their spires reaching toward the stars. He saw great ships descending from the sky, bearing technology beyond his wildest imaginings. Fremen, their still suits discarded, walking freely under a blue sky, no longer fearing the harsh sun or prowling sandworms. This could be your future, the green figure said. A world where water flows freely, where the desert blooms. The red figure added, but at what cost? Would you abandon the ways that have defied your people for generations? More visions assailed Zane. Fremen leaving Arrakis in droves, seeking new lives on lush, water-rich worlds. The great sieges standing empty, sand reclaiming the cave systems. Arrakis itself transforming, its endless deserts giving way to oceans and forests. The galaxy awaits, the figures spoke in unison. But Arrakis has been your crucible, forging you into what you are. Can you remain Fremen if you abandon the desert? Zane's mind reeled with conflicting emotions. The promise of abundance, of freedom from constant struggle, was intoxicating. Yet the thought of losing their identity, the strength and resilience born of Arrakis' harshness, filled him with dread. You stand at a crossroads, the green figure said. The choice you make will echo through generations. The red figure's tone was solemn. Will you cling to tradition or embrace a new destiny? As suddenly as it began, the vision faded. The figures dissolved into swirling motes of sand, leaving Zane alone with the weight of their worlds and the haunting images of possible futures. Even as consciousness slipped away once more, part of him knew that nothing would be the same. The encounter had shaken the very foundations of his beliefs, leaving him adrift in a sea of uncertainty about the fate of his people and his planet. The harsh sun beat down on the search party as they crested yet another dune. Karak, his face etched with worry, squinted against the glare. Suddenly, a shout went up from one of the scouts. There, by the stone marker. They rushed forward, finding Zane sprawled on the sand, his still suit in tatters. His eyes were open but unseeing, darting wildly as he muttered incoherently. Karak knelt beside him, cradling Zane's head. Water, he commanded, and a water skin was quickly passed to him. As he trickled water into Zane's parched mouth, the fallen Fremen's babbling became more distinct. The green, the red, they showed me. Arrakis transformed. Zane's words were feverish, disjointed. The search party exchanged worried glances. One of the older Fremen shook his head. Spice madness, he muttered. The deep desert has claimed his mind. We must get him back, Karak declared, rising. But where? To Lyra? Or the Siege Healer? As they debated, Zane's voice cut through their discussion. Suddenly clear and urgent. Nero. I need my Nero. A hush fell over the group. Nero was a name from Zane's past. A woman he had known before his marriage to Lyra. The mention of her name now, in his delirium, sparked concern and confusion among the rescue party. Karak made a swift decision. To the healer, he commanded. Quickly, now. They carried Zane back to the siege, his ramblings growing more frantic with each passing hour. In the cool darkness of the healing chambers, Fremen healers set to work immediately. They tried every traditional method known to their people. Spice-based concoctions were carefully administered, their potent aroma filling the air. Desert herbs, rare and precious, were ground and applied to Zane's forehead. Yet, nothing seemed to penetrate the trance-like state that held him in its grip. Hours turned into days, and Zane's condition only worsened. A high fever set in, causing his body to shake uncontrollably. His speech, once recognizable if disjointed, devolved into unknown tongues. The healers listened in growing alarm as sounds no human throat should make issued from Zane's lips. It's as if he's speaking the language of the worms themselves, one healer whispered, fear evident in her voice. Lyra, allowed brief visits, watched in anguish as her husband thrashed and babbled. The name Nero continued to surface amidst the incomprehensible words, a thorn of doubt and worry in her heart. As the days wore on, the siege buzzed with worried whispers. Their greatest warrior lay stricken by an ailment no one understood, speaking of visions that challenged the very core of Fremen belief. And always, always, the fever burned hotter, driving Zane further with each passing hour. The siege was in turmoil when the stranger arrived. Tall and pale-skinned, he stood out starkly among the desert-hardened Fremen. He called himself Thororn, claiming to be an off-world trader with knowledge that could save Zane. Karak, skeptical but desperate, allowed Thororn to see the stricken warrior. The off-worlder's eyes widened at the sight of Zane. "I've seen this before," Thororn murmured, reaching into a pouch at his hip. He produced a small device, alien and sleek. "Let me try to reach him." Before anyone could object, Thororn pressed the device to Zane's forehead. The room fell silent as Thororn's eyes closed in concentration. Minutes passed, tension mounting. Suddenly, Zane's babbling ceased. His body relaxed, and for a moment it seemed he might wake. But then Thororn stumbled back, his face pale and drawn. "I've done what I can," he gasped. "But the choice is his now. Two paths lie before him. One of tradition, one of transformation. He must decide." With those cryptic words, Thororn turned and fled the chamber, ignoring the Fremen's calls for explanation. By the time they thought to pursue him, he had vanished into the desert night. Days later, Lyra returned from a water-seeking expedition, her face etched with worry as she learned of Zane's condition still. Days later, Lyra sat by Zane's side. "Leave us," she commanded the attendant healers. Alone with her husband, Lyra began her own work. She started with traditional Fremen techniques: sacred oils, whispered prayers. But Lyra went beyond these, drawing on her deep connection with Zane. She spoke to him of their shared past, of dreams of the future. Her fingers traced the scars on his hands, each one a story she knew by heart. As she worked, Lyra hummed a melody, a song from their childhood, long forgotten by most. Slowly, Zane's breathing changed. His eyelids fluttered. "Zane," Lyra whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Zane, come back to me." His eyes opened, focusing on her face. For a moment, lucidity returned to his gaze. "Lyra," he croaked. I saw. But then, the vision seemed to take hold again. Zane's eyes darted wildly, his words becoming a jumble of Fremen proverbs and descriptions of impossible worlds. Lyra didn't falter. She continued her ministrations, her touch a constant anchor to reality. Hours passed, and slowly, Zane's periods of lucidity grew longer. He was caught between two worlds, the solid presence of his wife and the siege, and the swirling spice visions of futures yet unlived. As the sun set once more over Arrakis, Lyra knew this battle was far from over, but a spark of hope had been kindled. Whatever choice lay before him, she would be there, guiding him back to the world of sand and spice that was their home. As Zane's recovery progressed, the internal conflict within him intensified. He spent long hours at the mouth of the Siege, his gaze fixed on the endless dunes, wrestling with the memories of his visions. "The things I saw, Lyra," he murmured one evening. "Worlds beyond imagination. Knowledge that could transform Arrakis. Transform us." Lyra squeezed his hand, her eyes reflecting concern. "But at what cost, my love? Our ways have kept us alive for generations." The tribe elders frequently sought Zane's counsel, reminding him of his duties as a leader and a warrior. They spoke of the importance of Fremen traditions, of their sacred relationship with the desert and its worms. Meanwhile, reports trickled in from other Fremen tribes. Strange worm behavior was being observed across Arrakis. Some spoke of worms changing color, others of worms appearing in previously uninhabited areas. The Fremen, so attuned to the rhythms of their harsh world, felt the stirrings of unease. As tensions mounted, both within Zane and among the Fremen, he found himself slipping into one final overwhelming trance. This vision gripped him with a clarity and power that surpassed all others. He saw a great battle unfolding across the sands. Fremen warriors clashed with off-worlders wielding strange weapons and technology. At the heart of the conflict were the worms, not just the familiar desert behemoths, but the new, colorful variants as well. As the chaos of the battle faded, two distinct figures emerged from the swirling sands. One shimmered with the green light, her form fluid and ever-changing like the scales of the emerald worm. The other glowed with a deep metallic red, her presence as solid and imposing as the copper-hued behemoth. With the jolt of recognition, Zane understood. These weren't merely visions or symbolic representations. These were the worms themselves, communicating directly with him in a form his mind could comprehend. The green entity spoke first. "We are the change your world fears and desires. We are evolution made manifest," the red one added. Together, they revealed their true nature to Zane. They were the result of a rare genetic mutation triggered by exposure to an unknown form of spice deep within the desert. This mutation had not only altered their appearance, but had also enhanced their intelligence to unprecedented levels. We have achieved consciousness beyond what you thought possible for our kind, the green worm woman explained. We can communicate with humans through the spice as we do now with you. The red worm woman continued. Our existence opens the door to a new kind of relationship between humans and sandworms. One that goes beyond mere ecological dependence. Zane's mind reeled with the implications. This revelation challenged everything the Fremen thought they knew about Arrakis and the worms they revered. The worm entities showed him glimpses of possible futures. Fremen working in symbiosis with these intelligent worms, shaping the desert ecosystem with unprecedented control. But they also showed the dangers. Off-worlders seeking to exploit this new discovery and the ethical dilemmas it posed for Fremen culture and their treatment of worms. As the visions progressed, Zane saw two distinct outcomes unfold. In one, the Fremen emerged victorious from the battle, driving off-worlders from Arrakis and maintaining their isolation. They preserved their traditional way of life, but at the cost of remaining cut off from the wider galaxy and the potential benefits of this new discovery. In the other, Fremen and off-worlders found a way to coexist, integrating into a larger galactic community. This path led to incredible advancements and opportunities, but also risked the loss of traditional Fremen culture and their unique relationship with Arrakis. The choice, both worm entities said in unison, their voices resonating through Zane's very being, is yours to make. As the vision faded, Zane gasped awake, his mind reeling from the revelations. Lyra was there, holding him. But Zane's eyes were clear, focused. He understood now the weight of the knowledge he had gained and the responsibility it placed on him and all Fremen. The discovery of these intelligent worms opened up new possibilities, potentially allowing for more control over the desert ecosystem. But it also raised profound ethical questions about the treatment and use of sandworms in Fremen culture. As the sun of Arrakis rose, casting long shadows across the endless dunes, Zane stood before the gathered Fremen. His eyes, blue within blue from a lifetime of spice, swept across the faces of his people. In them, he saw fear, curiosity, and hope intermingled. "My brothers and sisters," Zane began, his voice carrying across the attentive crowd, "I have seen visions of our future, and I have communed with the great worms themselves. The path before us is not easy, but it is necessary." Over the next hours, Zane carefully shared his experiences, unveiling the truth about the mutated worms and their enhanced intelligence. He spoke of the potential for a new relationship, one of mutual understanding rather than mere reverence. "We will not abandon our ways," Zane assured them, sensing the unease rippling through the gathering. "But we must adapt slowly, carefully. We will integrate this new knowledge into our lives." As the days passed, Zane worked tirelessly with the tribal elders, devising ways to gradually introduce the concepts of intelligent worms and the possibility of off-world contact. They began with small changes, adjusting rituals and teaching to accommodate their new understanding of Arrakis' ecosystem. They began with small changes, adjusting rituals and teachings to accommodate their new understanding. Weeks into this process, a familiar figure appeared at the siege entrance. Thororn, the off-worlder who had briefly aided Zane during his illness, had returned. This time, he came with a full explanation. "I am part of a galactic ecological survey," Thororn revealed to Zane and the Council. "We have been monitoring Arrakis for years, watching the evolution of your relationship with the planet. The appearance of the mutated worms has accelerated our timeline. Initially met with suspicion, Thororn's knowledge and resources soon provided invaluable. Together with Zane and the Fremen leaders, they began to plan for a future where Arrakis could take its place in the wider galaxy without losing its unique identity. Lyra, ever at Zane's side, became a bridge between the traditional Fremen ways and the new ideas flooding their world. Her wisdom and compassion helped ease the fears of those struggling with the rapid changes. "We are still Fremen," she would remind people. "Our strength comes not just from the desert, but from our ability to adapt and survive. This is merely our greatest test." As the seasons passed, Arrakis began to transform. Small off-world outposts were established, bringing new technology and knowledge. Yet the vast deserts remained. The great worms still roamed, and the Fremen maintained their core traditions. Zane and Lyra stood atop a high dune, watching a group of young Fremen learning to communicate with a juvenile green-tinged worm. Nearby, an off-world scientist conferred with a Fremen watermaster about new conservation techniques. We are walking a fine line, Zane mused, his arm around Lyra's waist. She nodded, leaning into him. But it's a line we've always walked, between water and desert, life and death. Now, it's between our past and our future.